ladies and gentlemen, let me start with a question. What if I told you your life could change overnight? Not by luck, not by chance, but by 3 simple words you whisper to yourself before bed. Sounds crazy, right? But it happened to me. Yes, I won the $99 million lottery. And no, I don't believe it was just luck. I believe it was a seed I planted in my own mind every single night. Now, before you roll your eyes, hear me out. We live in a world where people dream big, but then fall asleep to doubt. They replay their failures. They rehearse their fears. And then they wonder why life keeps repeating the same script. I was the same. Broke, frustrated, tired of living paycheck to paycheck. I would lie awake at night thinking, maybe life just isn't for me. But then something shifted. One night, I decided to stop replaying my failures. Instead, I whispered 3 words to myself, over and over, night after night. Not a prayer, not a spell, just 3 words that carried power. And you know what happened? Slowly, life began to shift. My energy changed. My decisions sharpened. Opportunities showed up. And yes, eventually, the $99 million miracle appeared. Now you're wondering, what are those 3 words? Before I reveal them, let me give you a truth. Those words won't mean anything unless you believe them, unless you feel them in your bones, unless you allow them to rewrite the story you tell yourself every night. Because the words are not magic. You are. The 3 words were, I am worthy. That's it. Simple? Yes. But life-changing. See, for years, I didn't feel worthy. Not of money. Not of love. Not of success. And so I rejected every blessing that came near me. But when I started declaring, I am worthy, something inside me shifted. I stopped walking with my head down. I started saying yes to opportunities. I applied for things I never thought I could have. I stepped into rooms I once felt too small for. And when I bought that lottery ticket, I didn't do it with desperation. I did it with faith, with alignment, with worthiness. Now listen, I'm not telling you to play the lottery and expect millions. What I am telling you is this. When you go to bed tonight, the words you repeat are planting seeds. Seeds that will bloom in your reality tomorrow. So ask yourself, what are you repeating? I can't do this. I'll never have enough. Or, I am worthy. Because those 3 words didn't just win me money. They gave me peace. They restored my confidence. They reminded me that I deserved more. And if those 3 words could change my life, imagine what they could do for yours. So tonight, when the world goes quiet, whisper them to yourself. I am worthy. Say it like you mean it. Say it until it feels real. Say it until your whole being rises with new power. Because the truth is, you don't need a $99 million lottery ticket to win. You are already holding the jackpot. Inside your mind, inside your heart, inside the words you choose to believe, here are some key points related to this. The words you repeat to yourself shape your reality. Negative self-talk plants seeds of failure, while empowering words plant seeds of success. The phrase, I am worthy, can transform your mindset and attract opportunities. Worthiness is not about luck. It's about believing you deserve more. Success begins with alignment of belief, action, and confidence. You already hold the greatest jackpot, the power of your own words. When I say the words you repeat to yourself shape your reality, I don't mean it in some shallow motivational poster kind of way. I mean it in the rawest, truest sense of human existence. Think about this for a moment. Every single one of us has a voice that never leaves us. That voice doesn't take a holiday, it doesn't sleep, it doesn't even ask for permission. It just speaks. And it speaks the loudest when the world grows quiet. When the phone is put down, when the lights are off, when there's no one else to distract us, that's when you hear it most clearly. And the question is, what is it saying? For years, mine told me things I would never dare let another human being hear. It whispered, you're not good enough. You'll never get ahead. Look at you, failing again. And I believed it. Because when you hear the same sentence night after night, it begins to take root. It's like pouring water on the same soil. Eventually, something will grow. And if the water is toxic, If the words are poison, the seeds that sprout will choke out everything good inside you. I remember lying in bed one night, staring at the ceiling, the weight of bills stacked on my desk pressing down on my chest like an invisible hand. My heart thudded, not from excitement, but from dread, and all I could hear was my own voice saying, "This is just who you are. Struggle is your destiny. Stop expecting more." I repeated those lines like a sad lullaby. I didn't know it then, but I was rehearsing failure. I was reciting the script of my own limitations. It's no different from a child learning their first words. Imagine a child who grows up hearing, "You're brilliant. You're capable. You're loved." That child walks differently. They hold their head higher. They approach the world expecting to be welcomed. Now, imagine another child hearing every day, "You're a burden. You're worthless. Nobody wants you." That child shrinks, not because they were born small, but because they were told to be small. They step into the same world as the other child, but they see closed doors everywhere. Same world, different words. Same soil, different seeds. You and I were no different. We're just grown-up children, still carrying the words that were planted in us. Some of them came from our parents, some from teachers, some from painful experiences, but most of them come from ourselves. And here's the truth. The words you repeat are like commands to your subconscious mind. They shape your expectations, and your expectations shape your actions, and your actions shape your reality. I once spoke with a friend who always said, "I never get lucky. Things never work out for me." Do you know what I noticed? Every opportunity that came his way, he dismissed before it even began. A job offer? It'll never work out. A relationship? She'll probably leave me. A new project? I'll probably fail anyway. And guess what? He was right. Things never worked out for him. Not because he wasn't capable, but because his words created a reality where he wasn't even willing to try. His language built walls before he could ever walk through doors. Contrast that with another story. I met a woman who had every reason to complain. She had lost her job, her health wasn't great, and she was living in a small apartment that barely had space for her and her kids. But every night, she would tell herself, "This is temporary. Better is coming. I'm stronger than this." She repeated those lines not once, but hundreds of times. And you know what? Slowly, she started to live as if they were true. She applied for courses, reached out to mentors, walked into interviews with a quiet fire in her eyes. Within 2 years, she had doubled her income and moved her family into a better home. Did the words magically put money in her account? No, but they shifted her actions, and her actions shifted her life. Let me ask you something. Have you ever watched someone water a plant? At first, it looks like nothing is happening. Day after day, just water being poured into dirt. You almost wonder, what's the point? But underground, unseen, the seed is changing, stretching, preparing to break through the surface. And one day, without warning, a green sprout pushes upward. That's exactly what your words do. For weeks, months, even years, it feels like you're just whispering into the void. But underneath, your mind is shifting, your beliefs are taking root, and eventually, your reality sprouts into something new. Think about athletes. Before they step onto the field, what do they say? "I'm ready. I'm strong. I've trained for this." They don't stand there saying, "I'm weak. I'll probably lose." Because they know their performance begins in their mind, not on the field. Muhammad Ali once said, "I am the greatest. I said that even before I knew I was." He wasn't boasting. He was programming his reality. He was rehearsing greatness until his body had no choice but to catch up. Now, you might not be stepping into a boxing ring or running a race, but every day you're stepping into your own arena. The workplace, the classroom, the business meeting, the family conversation. And before you step in, the words you repeated decide whether you enter with fear or with faith. I'll never forget a simple but powerful moment at a bus stop. There was an elderly man sitting quietly, and next to him, a teenager mumbling something under his breath. Curious, I leaned closer and asked what he was saying. He looked at me and replied, "I'm telling myself, I can do this. I can do this." I can do this. I've got a big test today. His hands were shaking, but his eyes burned with determination. And you know what struck me? That boy was teaching himself resilience in real time. He wasn't waiting for the world to encourage him. He was encouraging himself. That's the choice we all face. To either be our own worst critic or our own best coach. To either repeat words that break us down or words that build us up. Every sentence you whisper is a seed. Every phrase is a brick in the house you're building for your future. And just like any house, it will either become a shelter that protects you or a prison that traps you. So I'll ask you again, what are you repeating? When no one's watching, when no one's listening, when it's just you and your thoughts, what story are you telling? Because whether you realize it or not, those words are scripting your reality. Negative self-talk plants seeds of failure, while empowering words plant seeds of success. It sounds so simple when said out loud, but the truth is, this is a quiet war most of us are fighting every single day, often without even realizing it. Imagine your mind as a vast field, a fertile piece of land that has the potential to grow anything. What you allow to be planted there determines what you will eventually harvest. Now, here's the challenge. Most of us don't even notice the seeds we're dropping into that soil. A passing thought here, a whispered criticism there, a sentence we repeat to ourselves in frustration, and before we know it, the field is overrun with weeds. I remember sitting at a coffee shop once, and behind me a woman was talking on the phone. Her words weren't loud, but I could hear the exhaustion in her voice. She kept saying, "I'm so stupid. I always mess everything up. Nothing ever goes my way." She wasn't saying it once. She was repeating it over and over, as if chanting a sad mantra. And I thought to myself, there it is, another seed planted. You could see it in her body language. Her shoulders curved forward. Her face carried the weight of defeat. Those words weren't just sounds. They were shaping the way she sat, the way she breathed, the way she moved through the world. Contrast that with conversation I once overheard on a train. A young man was talking to his friend, and after sharing how nervous he felt about a new job interview, he stopped, took a deep breath, and said, "But you know what? I can do this. I've worked hard. I deserve this." His whole face lit up when he said it, as if he had flipped a switch inside his mind. And I couldn't help but notice how his friend immediately leaned in with encouragement, feeding that energy. Positive words don't just plant seeds in our own minds. They inspire growth in others too. When you think about it, the human brain is like the soil in a garden. It doesn't care what you plant. If you drop an acorn, it will nurture an oak tree. If you drop a thorn bush seed, it will grow that just as eagerly. The soil doesn't judge. In the same way, your subconscious doesn't question whether the words you repeat are helping or hurting you. It just accepts them and begins to weave them into the fabric of your identity. So if every day you're saying, "I can't, I'm not enough, I always fail," your subconscious will bend reality to confirm that story. And if you start saying, "I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm capable," your mind will create pathways to prove that too. A teacher once told me something I never forgot. Be careful how you speak to yourself, because you are always listening. Think about that. If you had a friend who spoke to you the way you sometimes speak to yourself, would you keep them in your life? Would you tolerate someone constantly saying, "You're not good enough, you're worthless, you'll never succeed"? Most of us would cut ties immediately. But when it's our own voice, we allow it, we nurture it, we repeat it until it feels like truth. I knew a man who had been trying to start his own business for years, but every time he talked about it, he would say things like, "I'm probably not cut out for this," or "I'll probably lose money anyway." He never realized that his words were building invisible walls. Every time an opportunity came, he found reasons to reject it, excuses to stay small, and eventually he gave up altogether, not because he wasn't capable, but because his own words convinced him he wasn't. His seeds of self-doubt had grown into a forest of paralysis. But then I also met a woman who had been through unspeakable challenges. She was a single mother working 2 jobs, barely sleeping, constantly exhausted. Yet every morning when she looked in the mirror, she said, "I am strong. I am building a future. My children will see me win." And here's what's remarkable. Those words didn't erase her struggles, but they gave her the strength to keep going. Over time, they became her reality. She found opportunities to work smarter, build a small business on the side, and eventually lifted her family into a new life. It wasn't magic. It was mindset. Her empowering words didn't plant illusions. They planted resilience. It's like two farmers standing side by side, both with the same soil, the same weather, the same tools. One farmer plants weeds, the other plants corn. After a season, one has a field of thorns, and the other has a field of nourishment. That's the power of your words. They don't stay as whispers in your mind. They manifest into results in your life. Even in science, there's proof of this. Studies show that repeated self-affirmations can physically rewire the brain, creating stronger neural pathways that support confidence, problem-solving, and persistence. It's as if the brain itself leans toward whatever you keep feeding it. And if you've ever watched someone spiral downward into despair or climb upward into triumph, you'll notice the difference often starts not in their circumstances, but in their language. I once asked a successful entrepreneur what her secret was. She smiled and said, "I decided years ago that I would never say anything to myself I wouldn't want to come true." That line stuck with me. She guarded her words like a gardener guards precious seeds. Every sentence she allowed into her mind had to align with the life she wanted to grow. And that's really the heart of it. Negative self-talk is not harmless. It's not just words. It's the quiet architect of failure, shaping how you see yourself and how you act in the world. Empowering words, on the other hand, are not fluff or false hope. They're instructions to your soul, guiding your energy, sharpening your focus, pulling you toward a brighter reality. The truth is, we are always planning something. Every sigh, every complaint, every whispered doubt, every declaration of hope, each one is a seed. And whether we harvest weeds or flowers, famine or abundance, depends entirely on what we've been planning all along. The phrase, "I am worthy," can transform your mindset and attract opportunities. At first glance, it might sound too simple, almost too ordinary to carry real power. But let me tell you, those 3 words are not just sounds. They are a declaration, a shift, a rewriting of the story you've been telling yourself. For years, I didn't believe I was worthy. Not of money, not of success, not even of happiness. I thought worth was something you earned only after proving yourself, after grinding through pain, after achieving something grand enough to finally deserve peace. And because I didn't feel worthy, I sabotaged every good thing that came my way. A chance at a better job? I told myself I wasn't qualified. A relationship with someone kind and loving? I told myself they'd leave me once they saw the real me. Opportunities knocked, but I never opened the door, because deep down, I didn't believe I deserved to stand in that room. That's what unworthiness does. It closes doors before you even touch the handle. It shrinks your life into a cage, not because the world locked you in, but because you locked yourself out. I used to wonder why some people seem to attract success so effortlessly, why opportunities seem to fall into their laps. And one day it hit me. It wasn't luck, it was alignment. They believed they were worthy. So when life handed them a chance, they took it without hesitation. Where I hesitated, they acted. Where I doubted, they trusted. Worthiness was the difference. I remember sitting in a small seminar once, the kind where you pay too much money to sit in a hotel ballroom with strangers, listening to a speaker tell you how to change your life. I was skeptical, but one thing the speaker said pierced me to the core. He looked around the room and said, "The universe will never give you more than you believe you deserve." That line shook me, because I realized in that moment that my life wasn't limited by lack of resources or lack of time or lack of luck. It was limited by my belief in my own worth. I didn't think I deserved better, so I kept accepting less. When I started whispering, "I am worthy," every night, it wasn't easy. At first, it felt like a lie. My mind pushed back. "You? Worthy? Of what?" The old voice of doubt tried to drown it out. But I kept repeating it, not just with my mouth, but with my heart. Slowly, something started to shift. I noticed myself standing a little taller. I noticed myself speaking with more confidence, even in small conversations. I noticed myself applying for things I once felt were out of reach. And here's the miraculous part. Life began to respond. People treated me with more respect. Doors I once thought were locked cracked open. It was as if the world was waiting for me to realize my worth before it delivered what was already mine. Think of it like a radio signal. Worthiness is the frequency you broadcast. If you walk around radiating, "I don't deserve this," you'll attract situations that match that frequency. Jobs that underpay you, relationships that mistreat you, circumstances that keep you small. But when you start radiating, "I am worthy," you change the station. You begin to attract opportunities, people, and experiences that reflect that belief back to you. I once met a woman at a networking event. She carried herself with such quiet confidence that people naturally gravitated toward her. She wasn't the loudest in the room. She wasn't trying to impress anyone, but her presence spoke volumes. Later, I asked her what her secret was. She smiled and said, "I stopped apologizing for existing. I decided that I was worthy of every good thing. And once I truly believed that, I stopped chasing and started attracting." That line never left me. She wasn't talking about arrogance. She was talking about alignment. When you know your worth, you don't beg for scraps. You sit at the table as if you belong there, and the world adjusts accordingly. Let me give you a simple example. Imagine two people walking into the same job interview. The first person is silently telling themselves, "I don't really deserve this job. They'll probably see right through me. I'm not good enough." Their shoulders slump. Their voice trembles. They undersell their abilities. The second person walks in whispering, "I am worthy of this opportunity. I bring value. I deserve to be here." They sit taller. They speak clearer. They make eye contact. Who do you think gets the job? Same qualifications, same resume, but two completely different outcomes. All because of worthiness. Even in relationships, worthiness changes everything. I've seen people stay in toxic situations because deep down, they didn't believe they deserved better. They tolerated disrespect, neglect, even abuse, because their inner script said, "This is all you're worth." And I've seen others walk away from anything less than kindness and respect, not because they were arrogant, but because they had anchored themselves in the truth that they were worthy of love that lifts rather than love that breaks. The phrase, "I am worthy," is not about inflating your ego. It's not about believing you're better than others. It's about reclaiming what's already true, that your existence has value, that your dreams matter, that your life is not a mistake. When you carry that belief, you stop hiding in the background of your own story. You step into the spotlight, not to show off, but to finally live fully. One night, after months of whispering those words before bed, I woke up feeling different. Not because my bank account had changed overnight, not because my problems had magically disappeared, but because something inside me had shifted. The heaviness of shame had loosened its grip. I looked in the mirror and, for the first time in years, I didn't see someone broken. I saw someone becoming. And that's what worthiness does. It doesn't promise instant perfection, but it unlocks the door to transformation. Opportunities are like guests knocking at your door. If you believe you're unworthy, you never open it. You sit in the dark, pretending no one's home. But when you start declaring, "I am worthy," you swing that door open wide. You invite in the very things that have been waiting outside all along. Chances, connections, breakthroughs. They don't come because you suddenly became lucky. They come because you finally believed you deserve them. I think we're like breathing. Worthiness is as natural as air. It's not something you earn. It's something you allow. The problem is, most of us have been holding our breath for years, suffocating under the weight of doubt. Whispering, "I am worthy," is like taking your first real inhale, filling your lungs with the truth you've been denying. And when you finally breathe, life begins to flow again. So yes, those three little words can transform everything. Not because they're magic, but because they remind you of something you've forgotten. You were never meant to live small, to beg, to shrink. You were always meant to stand, to rise, to claim the fullness of what life has to offer. And the moment you begin to believe you are worthy, the world will begin to believe it too. Worthiness is not about luck. It's about believing you deserve more. That may sound strange at first, because we're taught from childhood that luck decides so much. We talk about lucky breaks, lucky numbers, lucky stars. We whisper, "She was just lucky," when someone succeeds, or "he never got lucky," when someone falls behind. But luck is a slippery idea. It makes us think life is random, like dice tossed on a table, when in truth, the story of your life is shaped less by chance and more by what you believe you deserve. I used to think I was unlucky. I told myself that story so many times it became my identity. If I lost a job, I said, that's just my bad luck. If I was overlooked in a relationship, I sighed, of course, I'm never the lucky one. The more I repeated it, the more I felt powerless. Because if life is only about luck, then what control do you really have? You become a passenger in your own story, waiting for fortune to finally smile on you. But here's the twist. Luck does visit, often more than we realize, but when it knocks, only those who believe they deserve it open the door. Think about two people buying a lottery ticket. Both stand in line. Both spend the same amount. Both walk away with a small slip of paper in their hand. But one thinks, why bother? I never win anything. I'll probably just throw this away. And the other holds the same ticket and whispers, why not me? I'm worthy of something good happening. The difference isn't the ticket. It's the belief. One person tosses it aside, forgets it, never even checks the numbers. The other checks, hopes, and allows themselves to receive. That's not luck. That's alignment. I remember a story about a young woman I met at a workshop. She had this glow in her eyes, but she told me she once lived in constant fear, always waiting for the next bad thing to happen. Her family told her she was cursed with bad luck because every time she started something new, it seemed to collapse. A new job would end in layoffs. A new friendship would drift away. A new project would stumble. But one day, she changed her question. Instead of asking, why am I so unlucky? She started asking, what if I am worthy of something better? She carried that sentence like a lantern in the dark. And slowly, things began to change. She didn't magically avoid struggles, but she stopped seeing herself as cursed. She went after opportunities with courage. She didn't shrink from challenges. And in time, she built a career that flourished. When I asked her how she explained the turnaround, she smiled and said, I stopped waiting for luck. I started believing I was worth more. It's easy to hide behind luck as an excuse. It's comfortable to say, I'm unlucky, so that's why I don't have what I want. Because if it's luck's fault, then you're off the hook. You don't have to try, don't have to risk, don't have to change. But worthiness asks something deeper. It asks you to claim responsibility for your own story. It asks you to say, I deserve more than this, and then live in a way that reflects that truth. I once knew a man who blamed luck for everything. He would see someone succeed and mutter, he just got lucky. He would watch someone buy a new house and say, if I had that luck, I'd have one too. But what he didn't see was that those same people were working late, showing up early, putting themselves in the path of opportunity. Luck might have brushed against them, but it was their belief in their own worth that made them reach out and grab it. This man, he never reached. He never applied for promotions, never invested in his own skills, never took a leap, because deep down he didn't think he was worthy of more. So when luck passed by, he didn't even notice. Worthiness is like a magnet. When you carry it inside you, opportunities seem to stick. Not because the world is suddenly kinder to you, but because you finally recognize and receive what was always there. Without worthiness, you walk past open doors and don't even see them. With it, you notice the smallest crack of possibility and you step through. A mentor once told me, the world doesn't give you what you ask for, it gives you what you believe you deserve. That sentence sat heavy on my heart for weeks. I began to think back on all the times I settled. Jobs that drained me, relationships that broke me, choices that kept me small. I had asked for better, prayed for better, dreamed of better, but when it showed up, I didn't take it. Why? Because I didn't think I deserved it. My own hands pushed away what I longed for, all because of unworthiness disguised as bad luck. Imagine standing in front of a buffet table filled with every kind of food you love. It's all there, fresh, waiting, available. But if you walk up telling yourself, I don't deserve to eat, you'll leave hungry. You'll watch others fill their plates and say, they're lucky. But the truth is, the food was always there, waiting for you. Life is that table. Abundance, love, success, peace. It's all laid out. Worthiness is what lets you reach out and take your portion. Without it, you'll keep starving in the middle of plenty. I once spoke to a group of students, and one young man raised his hand. He said, "I don't get it. Why do some people keep winning, while others like me keep losing? Is it just luck?" I looked at him and asked, "When you walk into a room, do you walk in like you belong there, or like you're waiting for someone to kick you out?" He went quiet. That was the answer. The people who keep winning aren't always smarter or more talented. They simply believe they belong. That belief makes them show up differently, speak differently, act differently. And when you act like you belong, the world often agrees. Worthiness is not arrogance. It's not entitlement. It's not about thinking the world owes you something. It's about knowing that you were born with value and that your dreams matter as much as anyone else's. It's about refusing to shrink when opportunities appear, about meeting life with open hands instead of crossed arms. And here's the paradox. Once you believe you deserve more, life doesn't just hand you more. It challenges you, stretches you, tests you. But because you see yourself as worthy, you face those challenges differently. You don't crumble at the first obstacle. You don't run at the first no. You stand taller, push harder, and move forward with faith. So no, worthiness is not about luck. Luck is a spark, but worthiness is a fuel. Without fuel, a spark dies out. With it, a fire grows. Life will throw sparks your way. Small chances, random meetings, unexpected ideas. Whether they ignite into something bigger depends on whether you believe you deserve to hold the flame. And when you finally anchor yourself in worthiness, you realize you were never unlucky. You were just living below what you deserved, waiting for permission that was already yours to give. There's a moment in every person's life when they face the uncomfortable mirror of doubt, when the voices inside their own head whisper louder than the encouragement outside of it, when the world seems to test every ounce of their patience and resilience. And it is in that very moment that many people quit, not because they were incapable, not because they lacked talent, but because they lost faith too soon. And that is why persistence, the act of showing up day after day, even when results are invisible, becomes a deciding factor between those who dream and those who actually touch their dreams. I remember reading about a writer who faced rejection 27 times before finally having her manuscript accepted. 27 letters that told her no. 27 moments that could have broken her spirit. But she held on, and today millions of copies of her books inspire people around the globe. Imagine if she had stopped at the 26th letter. Her story would have ended there, and no one would know her name. And this is exactly how persistence works. It's not glamorous. It's not loud. It's not always rewarded immediately. But it is the invisible force that keeps you in the game long enough for your breakthrough to finally arrive. Think about a seed buried under the soil. For weeks you see nothing but dirt. You water, you wait, you question whether anything is even happening. But beneath the surface, a miracle is taking shape. Roots are forming. Strength is building. And then one day the sprout pushes through. Persistence is the faith to water the soil when everyone else says it's just dirt. When I repeated those 3 words every night, it wasn't about magic. It was about persistence, about creating a rhythm, a ritual, a practice that convinced my mind not to quit. There were nights I felt ridiculous, nights I thought maybe this doesn't work, nights where life seemed heavier than the hope I carried. But the practice of staying consistent gave me something priceless. It gave me endurance, because life isn't a sprint, it's a marathon. And the ones who win are not always the fastest, but the ones who refuse to stop running. Think of Thomas Edison, who famously said, "I have not failed, I just found 10,000 ways that won't work." And those words still echo across generations because they remind us that persistence turns failure into feedback, rejection into redirection, and obstacles into opportunities. But here's what many people misunderstand. Persistence is not about blindly doing the same thing over and over. It's about holding on to vision while being flexible with the method. It's about refusing to abandon the dream while being willing to adjust the path. And that requires courage, because it is easy to quit. It is easy to say, maybe it wasn't meant for me. It is easier to point at circumstances and give them the blame. But persistence requires you to stand when your legs are shaking, to speak when your voice trembles, to keep moving forward when standing still feels more comfortable. I've met people who were just one step away from their breakthrough when they gave up, one step away from the finish line they've been running toward for years. And that breaks my heart, because they never knew how close they were. And maybe you felt the same. Maybe you worked tirelessly at something and asked yourself, what's the point? When will this finally pay off? But let me tell you this. The point is that every act of persistence is not just shaping your outcome. It's shaping you. It's building muscles of resilience, teaching you patience, sharpening your focus. And when the reward comes, it won't just be about the prize. It will be about the person you became along the way. Because persistence is transformation in motion. Think about a marathon runner again. The crowd cheers loudest near the finish line. But what no one sees is the lonely hours of training. The blisters, the early mornings, the endless miles on empty streets. Persistence is doing the unseen work, the thankless work, the repetitive work, because deep down you trust that it all matters. And maybe you're thinking right now about something in your own life you almost gave up on, a relationship, a career goal, a business, your health, your art, and maybe you've been waiting so long that doubt has become your companion. If that's you, let me remind you, your persistence is not wasted. Just because you can't see the growth doesn't mean it's not happening. Sometimes a breakthrough takes longer because you're being prepared to handle it. Sometimes the universe withholds a reward until you develop the strength not to lose it once it's given. Persistence is proof that you're serious. It's proof that you value the vision enough to fight for it even when it's invisible, and maybe, just maybe, you're closer than you think. Maybe tomorrow is the day the door opens. Maybe the next yes is already on its way. And wouldn't it be tragic to quit the night before the miracle? Persistence whispers one more try. It says, show up one more day. It urges you not to measure progress only by what you see, but by the strength you feel building inside. And if there's anything my story has taught me, it's that persistence doesn't just win lotteries. It wins life. It takes ordinary people and gives them extraordinary outcomes. Not because they were the most talented or the luckiest, but because they stayed long enough to reap what they sowed. There comes a point when you realize that all the words, all the affirmations, all the rituals in the world mean nothing if they remain locked inside your own heart. Because belief without action is like a bird with only one wing. It has the potential to soar, but it will never leave the ground. And this is where many people get stuck. They dream, they hope, they visualize, but when it's time to step into the uncomfortable, to risk rejection, to move when fear whispers, wait, they freeze. And in that pause, their destiny slips further away. I learned that the universe doesn't reward only those who believe. It rewards those who act on that belief, because action is the language of faith. When I began whispering those 3 words each night, they were powerful. Yes, they shifted my energy, they shaped my mindset, but they became truly alive when I allowed them to guide my choices, to shape my decisions, to pull me into places where comfort didn't exist. Because comfort is where dreams go to die, and stepping into action is where they begin to breathe. I remember a time when fear had me paralyzed. I had been invited to share my story at a small gathering, nothing grand, nothing fancy. But to me it felt terrifying, because what if people laughed? What if they didn't believe me? What if they saw me as foolish? And yet something inside whispered, if you don't move now, you'll stay stuck forever. So I stood on that tiny stage, hands trembling, voice shaking, and I told my truth. And in that moment I realized that courage is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to walk forward with fear sitting on your shoulder. And that step changed everything, because one small act of courage led to another, and then another, and soon opportunities began to multiply. People began to appear. Doors I couldn't have forced open with sheer strength seemed to swing wide effortlessly. But none of that would have happened if I had kept my belief locked away. And this is what I want you to see. Your faith, your affirmations, your rituals, they are the spark. But action is a fire. You cannot light up your world without it. Think of the farmer again. He can pray over the soil. He can speak life over the seeds. He can imagine fields of gold swaying in the wind. But if he never bends down to plant the seed, if he never waters the ground, if he never labors under the sun, what harvest can he possibly expect? Action is the bridge between the invisible and the visible, between hope and reality, between someday and today. And it doesn't have to be a giant leap. Sometimes it's as small as sending that one email, making that one phone call, taking that one class, starting that one conversation, and suddenly momentum begins to build. People often say, I'll take action when I feel ready. But the truth is, you will never feel ready. Readiness is not an emotion. It's a decision. The greatest athletes didn't wait to feel prepared before they trained. They trained in the rain, in the exhaustion, in the doubt, and that training made them ready. The same is true for life. Action creates readiness, not the other way around. I've seen countless people hold back their dreams because of the illusion of perfection. They tell themselves, once I have more money, once I have more time, once I have more confidence, then I'll begin. But that then becomes never, because the perfect moment doesn't exist. You create it by starting where you are with what you have, even if it's messy, even if it's imperfect, because progress is born in motion, not in waiting. Steve Jobs once said, real artists ship, meaning real creators, real dreamers, real doers put their work out into the world even when it's not flawless, because they understand that feedback, growth, and refinement only come through action. And this lesson was life-changing for me, because it taught me that hesitation is a dream killer, while movement, no matter how clumsy, breathes life into what you desire. I want you to imagine standing at the edge of a cliff. Behind you is everything you've ever known, safe, familiar, predictable, but in front of you is the open sky, endless and terrifying, and the only way forward is to leap. Action is that leap, and yes, it feels like falling at first. Yes, it feels like losing control, but then something miraculous happens. You discover your wings. You realize you were never meant to stay grounded. You were built to fly, but wings only work in motion, not in stillness. And that is why so many people never rise. They never leap. They never act because they fear the fall, forgetting that the fall is part of flight. I often think of the words of Martin Luther King Jr., who said, you don't have to see the whole staircase. Just take the first step. And that truth has carried me through countless seasons of uncertainty, because you don't need to know every detail of how your dream will unfold. You only need to act on the step right in front of you, and then the next, and then the next, and before you know it, you've climbed higher than you ever thought possible. There's a power in action that cannot be explained until you experience it. It reshapes your identity. It tells your subconscious, I am serious about this. It sends a signal to the universe that you're ready to receive, and suddenly opportunities begin to align. Not because the world has changed, but because you change the way you move through it. And maybe you've been waiting for a sign to start. Maybe you've been sitting with a dream tucked away in your heart, whispering excuses about timing, resources, or fear. Let me tell you now, this is your sign. This is your moment. Don't wait another day to put your belief into motion. Don't let another year pass you by while you're still getting ready. Because the life you want is not waiting for your hesitation. It's waiting for your action, and one bold move, one daring step, one act of courage could be the very key that unlocks the door you've been staring at for years. Action is faith made visible. It's the proof that you trust your dream enough to pursue it. It's the bridge between wishing and having, between speaking and living. And when you combine belief with action, that's when miracles stop being stories you hear about and start becoming chapters of your own life. S.O. tonight, as you leave this room, as you put down your phone, as you step back into the rhythm of your life, I want you to remember this. Dreams don't belong to the chosen few. They belong to those who dare believe and then dare to act. Say the words. Believe the words. Live the words. Because belief without action is just a wish, and action without belief is just work. But when belief and action come together, miracles happen. Don't wait for tomorrow. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for permission. Start now. Start small. Start scared. But start. Because every second you hesitate is a second your dream drifts further away. And every second you act is a second your dream moves closer. So let me leave you with this truth. If I could stand here, trembling, doubtful, uncertain, and still take that step, then so can you. Say it, believe it, do it. And one day, when your miracle arrives, you'll look back and realize it wasn't luck. It wasn't chance. It was you choosing to keep moving when it mattered most. The power is not out there. It has been in you all along. Now ask yourself this. Will you keep waiting or will you finally begin? Your support means everything if this resonated with you. Please like, share, and subscribe. And remember this. Your miracle isn't waiting for tomorrow. It's waiting for you to move today. Thank you for being here. See you in the next one.